you're ready for that. So with that in mind, are y'all all ready to have a conversation with some fabulous people over here? Awesome. Well, my first person who will be sitting next to me will be my friend Mars. Mars, come on up, buddy. Jason Marsden, everyone. This guy here.
Good to see you. Good to see us.
Good to see us.
I was not allowed to touch you?
Oh, you can touch me.
You reacted
We
like-
have consent. It's fine. It's fine.
Should have asked.
That's fine. It's fine. It's like, big love.
Good to see us.
We haven't seen each other in 3 years. All right, and after my friend Mars is Bill Farmer. Bill, come on up, buddy. And for me personally, I say this with genuine love. I'm really excited that this guest is here. I've never actually had the chance to work with Brett before, and I've met these two logs before we worked together. I love these guys, but Brett, come on up here to MomoCon and hang out with us.
Brett Highone. Yes.
Y'all, this is some talent in this house. We appreciate you taking a break from Elden Ring. Is that your game of choice right now? I don't know. All right, well, let's talk about that. Like, one thing I'm big on at all the shows that I do is fandoms and geeks. We're all geeks. We're all here because we love nerdy things, obviously. And it's not because you fellas all work in nerdy things. You all have passions and love for nerdy things as well. Sure. I want to know what the nerdy stuff you're into. And I'm going to start all the way at the end with the person who just drank a sip of water and come back down to me. I want to know, where's your geekiness? Like, what are the nerdy things are you into?
Oh, I'm not geeky at all.
It's been a good panel. That's fine.
Yeah.
You are too, and we know it.
Oh, gosh. I don't know where to start with that question. I like all things Disney. I'm a big Disney and animation nut, and Walt Disney nut at that. I love Disney history. I love history in general. But I guess if you want to be really nerdy, I'm really into trains.
That's awesome.
Trains in particular.
Yeah. It's a good way to carry the locomotion of this conversation
Yeah.
forward here. I'm here for this.
Yeah.
What is it about trains that's just exciting for you, though? Like, I'm excited for that.
Well, I don't think it's too far of a stretch to say that my love of history and Walt kind of ties into trains too. Like I love like turn of the century history. I think trains were a big part of that. I love mechanical things. I love to learn how things work. So I think trains just offer a really, you can deep dive into that topic. And
We could make this entire panel that if you really, really want.
Don't you have a train in your? Don't you have like a?
Yeah, you've got like a real
Walt hat
train in your house.
yeah, I've got a few of them now.
Yeah. What?
You think we're here to talk Disney? No, we're here to talk about the things that you're really into. And if trains is it, buddy, let's bring it on.
Yes, I do.
We're on this
I
rail
have
together.
a steam train I'm restoring. It's not a tiny train. It's a big train, and you can actually sit in it and ride it and drive it. And yes, so. But the truth be told, the reason I really like trains is the overalls. I just like wearing overalls.
You know what? If that's the reason you need to rock them overalls, I mean, who are we to judge?
Hey,
right?
I mean, they're kind of
Well,
coming back in fashion. I'm just saying I've been wearing them for a while.
Awesome. Well, Bill, you've had some time to prepare while we've heard us banter. Well, where's your geeky, nerdy fun times?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm a big Halloween freak.
Yeah.
I love Halloween
right
so
house.
much, and I was an electronic technician for many years. So I used to build Tesla coils for our Halloween party, and I'd zap Frankenstein, and he'd come to life and everything. When I was a kid, I was into pyrotechnics. I made explosives.
Oh, right.
I made fireworks.
I've been partying at the wrong house for Halloween. What is this?
Yeah, absolutely. We always had a Halloween party. Up to 150 people would come.
Yeah.
And, I just geek out on Halloween. I love old monster movies, especially from the 50s. If you can see the zipper on the monster, it's even better.
Yeah.
So, it's like really the worse the better. I really loved them.
What is it about, like, just the B-levelness of it all that makes you go, no, this is my love, this is my passion? Like, what is the cheesiness that endears you to it?
I don't know why. I think it's because the first movie I ever saw in a theater, this is how old I am, that I love old Ray Harryhausen movies, like Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. I saw that in a theater when I was a kid, and that's what made me decide, I want to do something in show business. It's so cool. A cyclops, fighting skeletons, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I just
That's some of the greatest animation, too, as well, like all the skeletons, like Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, Jason and the Argonauts, and things like that. That era of cinema was just, like, stunning for me. Like, I'm 40 years old, and that's the stuff, like, my father raised me on, too, so having that shared appreciation, and also being just, like, the biggest Halloween nerd I know as well, so there's definitely some It makes sense. There's a pattern here I never realized before.
Absolutely,
so-
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Mars, you're into a lot of geeky stuff, but where are you at these days with your fandoms and your loves?
Oh man, I grew up being a Disney nerd. I love Batman. I'm a Batman nerd. I got Batman right here. Bruce Timm Batman on my arm. Most recently, I really last few years. Sorry. Oh, is that me?
You're too hot for your own good, buddy. It's fine. Hot mic.
Really into classic Hollywood character actors and comedy, classic comedy like from vaudeville era to now. I'm fascinated with stand-up comedy because it's such a different beast than acting, So I've been reading Cliff Nestorhoff's book about it, if anyone's interested in that sort of thing. And I listened to the late great Gilbert Gottfried had a podcast I was obsessed with called Gilbert Gottfried's Colossal podcast, where he's also a monster kid, and he talked a lot about old monster movies, and he would interview Bela Lugosi's daughter and son, and talk with contemporary character actors and comedians and stuff. And I just find those conversations riveting.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, I love that. We get to learn a little bit more geeky things, and the beauty of events like these is we typically bring a lot of people from a lot of walks together. Like, obviously, these guys are all here for Disney, but one thing that's fun is when a lot of these fandoms start to bleed over. And so this is actually I'm going to question down for Brett at the other end. Brett, Steve Whitmire's here. I actually just did a panel with him in this room a couple hours ago. Steve Whitmire was one of the voices of Kermit. He's been involved in puppet for a while. I was excited to see you had stopped in on his recent Cave-In show at some point. What was that experience like for you? Because working with puppets is always we have a saying in the puppetry field is never work with puppets, and you did that. So
I did, and I don't see what all the fuss is about. I'd totally do it again.
that's what we
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
No, that was so cool. I'm a big admirer of Steve and his work and everything he's contributed. And so I was honored to be a guest on that show. But I will say, growing up with Sesame Street and the Muppets and all of that stuff, it really was one of the coolest moments to be standing there and see how it's done. You've seen the behind-the-scenes footage, and we're all kind of aware. But when you're actually in it,
right,
and you realize when it's all said and done that I didn't see Steve at all. I saw the troll, and I just kept talking to the troll, to the puppet. Yeah. And then when you're done, you're like, oh, hey, Steve. You've been down there the whole time? Sorry.
Yeah.
No, that was fun. It was fun. I just kind of rolled with it.
Yeah, it would seem like just a bunch of improv banter, which obviously, the nature of conversations like these, but being able to make a piece out of that just seemed like a very entertaining experience.
Well, hey, what you saw on the screen with my involvement was pure entertainment on my part. I was it was not rehearsed. I was just enjoying it.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Bill, I want to come on to you for a second. Again, this is convention multiple fandoms, and you and I had a chat about this a little while ago, but Amphibia, do we have any Amphibia fans in the house? Some?
Good.
That's awesome. That's always exciting. It is arguably, for me personally, one of the most moving cartoons that I've ever seen. If you haven't seen it, check it out. That first season will, as I like to say, DuckTales you. The last episode, really, you're like, oh, no, I'm crying. And then now I'm crying for the remainder of the series. It just wrapped up a couple of weeks ago, had a big finale. People are hearing cosplay with Amphibia characters and things like that. What was the particular thing or things about that project that you're like, I'm in, I want to be a part of Amphibia?
Well, it actually just started off as a regular audition. I didn't know anything about the series, anything other than that they wanted this character named Hop Pop to have a voice. Mm-hmm. And I looked at the picture of him, and I just tried to figure out what kind of voice he would have. And he kind of had a little ascot and stuff, a little vest, so I was kind of thinking maybe kind of a Southern gentleman kind of a thing. But as I kind of played around with the voice a little bit, I thought, well, kind of maybe it's more of a pinch thing. And then maybe I took him more west. So he's kind of a Texas accent. Mm-hmm. And before long, I just kind of slowed him down, and there came Hop Pop. Mm-hmm. And so you just develop a voice over a while. And I actually did the pilot, which was called Amphibiland before. And I was one of the first ones cast, according to Matt Brawley. They actually sold the series. It took like a year and a half, almost 2 years before they went to production. Yeah. They recast everybody except for me. I was very fortunate to make it from the very first. And if you ever see Amphibiland, it's uncredited, but I was the voice of Grime in that first cartoon. But it was a tough gravelly voice, and I'm glad that Troy Baker got that because he did a much better job than I did, and they changed the character somewhat. But I love doing that because it's an original voice. I got to come up with it and kind of create the character, and the writing is spectacular. And if you haven't seen it, I love 2D animation as well. The colors palette that they have in that show, and just the heart that character in that series has is just fantastic.
Yeah,
I just love doing it. I'm gonna miss it.
But we get to live in a time when it existed in the first place, and I love that we still get to have that cartoon. So it harkens back to an older era of animation, and like kind of like nostalgia being a big thing. And speaking of nostalgia, this guy here, you went to 90s Con recently, which 90 Cons, yeah. Well, like that is like pure.
You were there.
Yeah, obviously. But 90s Con it was just like pure unfiltered nostalgia. How powerful do you think nostalgia is as a force in this world? Like a force for good, just a force for entertaining? Like you were literally like 90s Con. When I hear nostalgia, that's what I thought of. And everything I looked from there, it looked like a blast.
I remember the first time I saw the first episode of Stranger Things, and that was like super nostalgia for me because that was me. Like I was their age, you know, playing D&D. You know, in that I recognized everything in it, and just witnessing that, it harkened back to some really awesome feelings, and that's why nostalgia is so huge because it takes us back to those times where we didn't have a job and we didn't have to worry about responsibilities and bills and stuff like that, or just a warm place in your memory. I think that's why people it's serotonin, it's dopamine, it's chemical, and now the industry cashes in on that. And they did with 90s Con. It was a ridiculously fun event, especially for me personally, because I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and I don't see my friends from Los Angeles anymore, so I got to see people that I hadn't spent time with in decades, like Will Friedle and then the cast of Full House and all those guys. So it was fun to meet fans and also like reunite with these cats that I work with. Yeah.
I love it when we can bring things together under the guise of nostalgia. And so with nostalgia still in the brain, let's kind of dive into Disney just for a moment, just before we go too deep. This is a question that I'm sure you guys have hit tons of times, and we all have an answer already in our brains. Like, we're talking nostalgia, classic Disney film of choice. What's your go-to classic Disney? Obviously, like, I'm repping Robin Hood. That's my go-to here. It might be yours, but between the three of you guys, what's your classic Disney of choice? You guys just go, let me know. Go for it.
Gosh. Well, me, it goes back to, as I say, I was like a science nut, a nerd. The original Absent-Minded Professor with Fred McMurray. I tried to make Flubber in my chemistry set. Never worked. Never worked at all. Those kind of, that of Disney, it's that old the animated pictures. Probably Bambi was one of the first ones I remember seeing in the theater. And and I'll tell you, Pinocchio scared the hell out of me.
Oh, man, yeah. The Pleasureland sequence still terrifies me
Pleasureland.
today. Oh, my
man,
God.
I don't want to go in. Big guy's ready to beat the hell out of you. I don't want to go in there. So those are what I think of. And people always ask me, about Goofy. That Goofy was my favorite Disney character growing up. That's nostalgia for me because I remember watching The Wonderful World of Disney and practicing the voice and why Dad, gosh, and doing that and everything. And my dad just like something's wrong with him.
Something wrong or something right. So, well, Brett, what's one of your classic, or maybe your go-to classic?
Well, I don't know what it says about me, but as a child, my favorite was Pinocchio. I guess I was a glutton for punishment.
Into a donkey.
That was my choice, and my love for the film only grew the more I learned. Talking about geeky things, the more I learned about animation, and the multi-plane camera and how that was used in it, and just the art form behind it. And if you go back and watch some of the rough hand-drawn animation that Frank and Ollie did, and the other 9 old men on that, it's unbelievable that kind of acting and movement came out of the tip of a pencil. Unrivaled in terms of artistic style. And then another one for me was Swiss Family Robinson, if we're talking live action. I loved that. I mean, that kind of, it captured everything that we were doing out when we were playing outside, building tree houses of our own, right? I grew up in Pasadena, California. We had these huge eucalyptus trees, and we would build these forts and tree houses that were way too high off the ground by today's standards. I would never let my nieces or nephews do this now. I mean, we should have died. But yeah, so those are two that come to mind. And then I was a huge fan. It's not super nostalgic, but well, I guess it still is. The Renaissance of animation with The Little Mermaid and Aladdin and The Lion King. And those are really, those came out at a time that it was very formative for me artistically. I'd always dreamed of being a Disney animator, but that kind of solidified it for me. I would go home after school and I'd put on whatever soundtrack I was drawing the characters from, and I would listen to the music and draw the characters while everyone else was outside playing sports. So, you know.
I'm here for that.
Yeah.
I love that. All right.
Man, I wish I had known you then, because you and I would have hung out. 'Cause,
I know.
That was all. I was looking for buds like that because I loved the process of animation. I loved drawing. I remember like the first thing I bought on my own that I saved up for was the Illusion of Life.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't know about this book, it's like the Bible of animation by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, two of Walt's 9 Old Men. And the Jungle Book was like my nostalgic thing when it would pop up. It was mostly available. Like this is before these movies were available to even rent, but Jungle Book was always available, and I loved the music and the colors and the style of all that. And I would pour into that book and watch them draw like Shere Khan and just like his underbite, and then learning later on how they really patterned it after George Saunders voiced Shere Khan, like the way that he sort of talked. That always gave me such great feelings. It was sort of like a stepping stone into the rest. I would love to have been an animator, but I couldn't sit and draw all day. That's
actually what I realized too.
Yes.
I can't sit still long enough.
Yeah.
You found a way out.
Yeah.
I found a way out. You know, I just thought of the other one for me was The Prince and the Pauper. I remember I was in, I can't remember the name. You remember when they used to have record stores where you'd go in and like thumb through the albums or the CDs later on? Well, I one day was in there, and of all the Disney movies, there was one copy of The Prince and the Pauper, and I lost it. I was like, I have to have this. And I watched that all the time, all the time. And I would sing along with Mickey and Goofy, you know. I'm just a little guy. Give me a pizza pie.
That is the only song, that was the first theatrical release I did, which makes me feel very old. But that song we did in the Capitol Records building.
Oh, no.
The only time I've ever recorded in that.
Really?
This was like the
Wow.
studio where Frank Sinatra did all his albums and everything. So Wayne and I, Wayne Allwine, voice of Mickey at that time. And we did that little, give me a pizza pie, all of that. And that's the only place we ever recorded that little bit from Prince and the Pauper.
crazy.
Little
Capitol
trivia
Records
there.
building. You've seen it in movies.
Yeah, it's a big round building, looked like a stack
yeah.
of records.
Yeah.
So,
I love it when you can find these little incidental moments. And so, like, with background voices, incidental things like that, I'm curious, between the three of you guys, is there an incidental or background voice that you're proud of, but no one knows it's you? And just these fun little Easter egg kind of moments, things like that, where you got some insight.
It's in Prince and the Pauper, I did 5 different voices. I did Goofy, Pluto, Horse Collar, who hadn't had a voice up to that point, except for like some, just little, I think maybe a line or two from Billy Bletcher back in the 1930s. He really didn't have a voice. And I got to come up with that voice on the set. They just said, the director was saying, well, what's this guy sound like? And I said, you want to try it? And they said, well, what's he like? Well, he's kind of snooty. So I was thinking Jim Backus off of Gilligan's Island.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's very droll, so I was thinking Ben Stein from Ferris Bueller. But, so I kind of put them together, and it came out like this. And I came up with that just on the fly. I also was a chicken that 2 guys were kind of pulling, and the chicken goes, that's all I did.
Tell them about Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast? Oh, well, that's the most obscure thing I've
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
done. In the movie, I've done a lot of background voices in movies. In the movie Beauty and the Beast, I was a lot of the people, attacking the castle, crowd scenes, and etc. But in the scene where Gaston is singing in the bar about, decorating with antlers and all of this, he throws 3 eggs up in the air, and they go, and that was me. I'm eggs. So I'm really proud of that. It was so obscure that no one would ever know that.
No.
I'm eggs. Yeah, that's on my resume.
Yeah. You've peaked.
I know I peaked when I did
Eggs.
eggs, yes.
All right. Is there anything that either of you guys might be snuck in the background that we might not be aware of?
Oh,
You got one, Brett?
No, I mean, the things I've done, nothing worth noting. not nearly as prolific, but I am putting together, you said you were a chicken that was getting strangled, and then
Yes.
you were eggs. So
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah, chicken and eggs.
There's a whole
I
theme
don't know
here.
which came first.
I know,
really.
yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
I worked on, we worked on Monsters University together,
Yeah.
and it was part of a loop group, and it's after the movie's like mostly done, they bring in a bunch of actors to kind of like do the background crowd things and whatnot, and then they'll pick you out and like do
Yeah.
the gulping or whatnot. But there's a little part in there, if you've seen the movie, where the monsters are doing this relay race through a maze, and they have to avoid the teenagers, and the teenagers
Right.
are these like wood things that pop up, and I'm the one that goes, you just don't understand me. That's me. Yeah.
These things work out, so.
Thanks. Well, another one that comes out, if you see Toy Story, I did a voice of the Mission Control and the Pizza
On the Pizza
Planet.
Planet, yeah,
I was
yeah.
saying things like, T-minus 29, 28, getting ready for launch, those kind of things.
The fun little odd jobs that come along. It's like any other like hired gun profession, voice acting. It's like the work is work, and until you guys start landing the role consistently, and when you become like I guess I am this character. You're doing all these fun things, and then
Right.
by that point you're trusted in the house that you're working, so they get to be like, yeah, have fun, and do these things like that. So it's
Yeah,
exciting.
and a lot of times, several of us might do the same voice. They don't know who does the best one or whatever, and you don't know until you see the movie.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, they used my take.
That's
Oh,
it. That's it. I love where this information comes from, especially because it's such a wild thing. But like beyond voice acting, there's a lot of other fun things that you're working on. So, like, Bill, I know you're working on it's A Dog's Life on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. We'll kind of dive into that a bit.
Oh,
more.
that was also an amazing highlight because it's a live action show. It's about, and I pitched the show to Disney, sold it, I produced it, created the show, as well as am the host of it. It's kind of like my baby. And we came up with the idea. Actually, a friend up in Reno, Nevada was doing a local show and wanted to do a local, it was a kind of an equestrian place. People kept their horses there. They would go on those fox hunt type of things, and they'd have the walker hounds that went out and kind of, chase the coyote or in that case, they weren't chasing anybody. They were just taking the horses out for excitement. And, but I was just kind of farting around when I was doing that. I was talking to the dogs, and I was doing, like Arnold says, you dogs are flabby, the coyotes are going to run away from you, get out there. And we started playing around, and that footage kind of jumped out at us, and we said, why don't we make a show about dogs? We put this idea together about I'm stepping out from behind the microphone after doing Disney Dogs Forever and finding out about real dogs that have exciting jobs.
Nice.
And pitched it to Disney, sold it on our first day of, first time I'd ever pitched a show. And we made 10 episodes. It's on Disney Plus now, and it took about a year.
Really good.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
So check it out. It's A Dog's Life with Bill Farmer.
Yeah.
On Disney Plus this week.
No, so, Brett, you've got a fascinating side project there, say, with the clothing line, the script thing that you're working with Ashley on and stuff like that as well. The story of how this came to be is really fun. I don't know if everyone here knows the clothing line. Can you kind of give us some insight on this fun Mickey clothing line that you've got?
Yeah, totally unexpected. I never set out to be a clothing designer, but as you mentioned, one of my best friends is Ashley Eckstein, the voice of Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars. And if you know her, she's made a name for herself beyond the character by developing a whole brand called Her Universe. It was offering, fandom-based clothing, themed clothing, in a market that just didn't exist before. So anyway, regardless, she's got a lot of fantastic connection within the Disney Parks brand and Disney merchandising, and she actually made the introduction. She's one of those hype friends that takes every opportunity she has to introduce you and connect you with people, like-minded people, and so she's done that with me time and time again, and one of those happened to be with the Disney Parks merchandising team, who just happened to be working on an artist series project at the time, looking for artists to create some artwork that was kind of their interpretation of Mickey or their take on Mickey. Now, I just mentioned how much of a stickler I am for the nostalgic, old-school Disney animation style. So that applies to versions of Mickey. I'm kind of a snob when it comes to that. When I see an off-model Mickey, I'm like, ooh. Or, ooh. What happened to my face? So it was a little challenging, honestly.
Yeah.
They were like, well, we want your artist interpretation. And I'm like, my artist interpretation is Freddie Moore's version from The Pointer. Like,
Right.
what do you mean? This is classic Mickey. So it took me a while, and I kind of was, to be honest, I was kind of in a bad mood over it. I was like, I don't want to do this. And then it struck me one day in a recording session when I was doodling all over my script, as I do every time, whether it's little notes about the mood that we're, acting in, or what the direction the director's given me, or oftentimes I'll just draw Mickey with a little expression of whatever the moment is. It just keeps me occupied. And I saw that and I realized that's my take on Mickey. It's my little doodles. And so we came up with the idea of calling it Script, based on the fact that they're the drawings that ended up on the line of clothing, which was a backpack, a hoodie, a hat, a T-shirt. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Anyway, they were just my doodles from scripts, hence the name Script. So it was really cool. And I don't have anything clothing-wise lined up. I have, not become a big fashion designer like you'd think. But I'm hoping that relationship continues, because it's a great team to work with.
It's a fun project too. It's just one of those things that, like, kind of Disney merchandising is just so random at times with some of the things they do make, the things that they don't make. And so when I saw that was a clothing line that the story of that, I was like, this is just like wholesome, but like in just kind of like the weirdest ways. Like, how? Here's some pictures I drew on my script. Essentially, it was just so wild to me.
Well,
and I'm glad it's been so fruitful in that regard.
It was really cool to see. And part of the learning process for me was, I was like kind of anti. I don't know. I might take it, but once I figured out what Mickey would look like, then I got to kind of discover the joy of, what's the color palette? Like, what's the material looking like? And, for me, I'm a huge outdoor national park camping kind of guy. That's my vibe. And so we got to translate that into the color palettes. And, I'm like, I had to explain to them. I was like, if I was to buy a Mickey shirt, it would not be Mickey all over. It would be like this little Mickey right here, this little pop. And they kind of honored that in some of the little details they did. So it turned out really well. And I got to tell you, it's the weirdest thing to be walking through Disneyland or anywhere and see someone wearing it. I'm like, why are they dressed like me? What's going on? I'm like, hey, that's my backpack. And I was actually leaving Orlando, and standing in front of us getting on the plane was a guy wearing the backpack. And my husband's like, tell him that you, I'm like, no. He's like, I'm not telling him. I'm like, don't you dare tell him. So I knew what would have happened is he would have been like, excuse me, sir, he designed your backpack. And he'd be like, this is my son's. I'm just carrying it. So
that's fair. Yeah. Well, so Mars, for more side project things too, like you mentioned how you moved to Nashville a few years back. I'm from Nashville as well, so there's some camaraderie there. But you are also kind of doing your own kind of con thing that's coming up really soon, giving a voice not only to the nerdy, but to the locals of Nashville. I want to kind of tell me all about this, what you got going on with that.
Well, I'd be happy to tell you about Nashville Comic-Con, coming to Nashville, Tennessee at the Fairgrounds, June 4th and 5th in Nashville, Tennessee.
Is that next week?
It's next week. All right. Yeah, you guys got nothing to do next week, right? Just bounce from con to con to con. Yeah, man, I have always been fascinated with festival culture and con culture, having been to like festivals like Bonnaroo and Pilgrimage, mostly like in the Southeast, and especially doing a lot of cons. What I've noticed is, if y'all have been to a lot of cons, you might, recognize this. They're all the same, right? Okay, and I say this, like, there's always panels, there's celebrities, there's merchandise, there's cosplay, but depending on who's running it, depending on the infrastructure, it kind of, sets the tone and makes you want to come back. Obviously, the folks at MomoCon know what they're doing, and I'm like, it's really, and the company's incredible conventions out of South Carolina, and they do Tidewater and Fairfax, and they're producing the show in Nashville, and they're letting me kind of like show run it, because I'm like the boots on the ground guy, and I love it, and I'm like the hype man for my own city and for my own culture, and so they're giving me the reins to do it. It's so much fun. What sucks is, like, if it tanks, it's going to be my face. So maybe it's smart on their part. No, it's going to be fun. They're letting me, like, what I'm bringing differently is it's Nashville, it's Music City. I'm enchanted by the local musicians in Nashville. I mean, these cats, like, pouring their guts out on stage, sometimes for like 6 people. I don't know how they do it. I've never seen anything like it. So I have a show, another side project called the Mars Variety Show on YouTube. Please check it out. Subscribe, where I give a voice to local indie musicians and local independent stand-up comics, because Nashville has a big stand-up comic scene out there too. So I'm going to bring in some local musos to kind of busk in between the vending aisles. And I did a little nepotism and nabbed my friend Will Friedle from Boy Meets World to come down to Nashville, which is funny because I've been living there for 10 years and he's never visited me once.
You offered the guy a job, though. I guess I'll come.
Booked him a con, yeah, I'll show up.
Fine.
Yeah.
You're going to fly me out? Yeah, I'll come visit you, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's fun, though, that you're able to have that community aspect, too. And
Yeah,
like,
man.
not just, like, you're used to being on this side of the table, and then also you've been on that side, to be that, and to bring that community, I think it's really, really rad.
And
So-
I've learned a lot. I mean, there's more to just like, I mean, you have no idea the amount of work that goes into putting on a show like this, and just even this room, so much of a team has to be in place. It was incredibly enlightening and humbling.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, we are going to open up to fan questions here in a moment. I've got one more question to ask them. Real quick show of hands, how many of you might have questions? Awesome, cool. So we're going to come around to y'all in a moment. And so actually, there's one right behind you. That's perfect. So we're gonna start with one last question, and then so that y'all are ready. Your time is next. So, gents, my last question for you as a team. I'm a big theme park nerd, Disney specifically. I know you also have spent a lot of time in all the assorted theme parks. What is your favorite thing in the theme parks that you think goes unnoticed by the masses? Like the job is so good that no one notices it.
Oh, good question. Crying out loud.
Wow.
I was about to blurt out food and wine at Epcot.
Epcot, let's
Yeah.
go!
But then you
Do
continue
you start in Mexico, or do you start, like, which way do
No,
you go?
I always enter through England. That's right.
That is the right answer. All right.
Because I always park. I get dropped off at
Yep.
Boardwalk.
Boardwalk, yep.
Walk. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we know the shame. What is it? Hidden treats of Disney that you said, do you think they're so good in the parks? I knew you weren't ready for this, so it's a little thinker here.
I feel like we need a whole nother panel for this.
Yeah,
I
I
can't.
really could.
We'll just stay an extra hour.
I can go into it because I.
Okay, you
yeah,
got something? Go for it.
My buddy Lon Smart. You ever met Lon Smart?
No.
He was an animator. He was a feature animator when they had feature animation in Orlando, and he worked on Lion King and Mulan, especially Mulan because that was animated primarily in Orlando. Anyway, Lon is now an Imagineer at Disney parks, and he kind of does the artwork that you see in the parks. Like if you stayed at the animation
Art of Animation?
Art of Animation, all the big
those things are
artwork.
huge.
That's him. Like he did that. And then and I was there. I was like, oh man, I'm in your resort. And he's like, go in the commissary and look at the ceiling and all the paintings on the ceiling. Like there's like a Cars area with all the clouds are like shaped like cars. He did that. He's like, you could see my PT Cruiser in there. I fit it in there. Stuff like that blows my mind. It's like that someone's job is to do that, is to not just like build these places, but to decorate them and the heart and the town they put into that. And these little things, I totally get off on that.
My girlfriend likes to describe it as me, especially like as an architect of experience.
Yeah.
And we were comparing that to Imagineering, and so like that's a great example because I've stayed in that hotel a lot. It's kind of my go-to when I go down there, and I never once noticed his PT Cruiser. So next time I go, I'll be like,
There it is.
here it is.
There's so many little
little nods in
little
there.
hidden gems all over the place.
Yeah.
That I went a couple of years ago when we were doing the dog show to Aolani out in Hawaii, and Joe Rohde, I believe, designed that, and it's such a great melding of Hawaiian culture and Disney, but it's not overpowering. It's a hint of Disney, but it's very strong in Hawaiian. But the seamless way that they do that in all the parks, you go into Star Wars land. I mean, you've just looking around, you don't see any part of the other parks.
Right.
It's just designed so perfectly. You go into Cars Land, and the panorama and everything is just so
Stunning.
amazing. The detail that Disney goes into on the rides, that you may go on a ride for 100 times and you don't notice something, and then you'll say, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
You know, they'll have some little thing. That's what I think is so cool about the place. And also the nostalgia. I've never been to Disneyland. I don't think that I haven't gone on, Haunted Mansion, my number one ride,
Right,
and
yeah.
'cause I love Halloween.
Yeah.
And Pirates.
Yeah.
Because that was really quintessential Disneyland for me.
Real quick before we move on to Brett, which one's the better Pirates, Florida or California?
I think California, because you got
Right
the
answer.
going
You got the
down
drop,
the,
yeah,
you
you
know,
get the
the
little
drop
bayou
and the-
section.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
it's
with you.
just, and it's also, it just kind of screams Walt. his influence and the design of that and everything just still lives on.
Awesome. All right, let's go to our last answer here. Let's see if you've had some time to
gosh,
dig deep.
Still was
into the
not
glimmering
enough time,
gloom.
but I will say we've all kind of touched on the detail aspect of it, and I think that's that's what sets Disney parks apart from any other experience, right? It's the details. And so I still work as a designer. I have a design company. I've done interior design, and I've designed some restaurants and restoration projects and whatnot. And so one of the things I do is when I'm out and about, like a restaurant or whatever, I can usually be like, oh, I know where that, I can source things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, that came from this, or that's generic. When you're in a Disney park, I do that a lot, right? I'm like, where'd they get that lantern from in Frontierland? And it's rare that you ever find something that's just sourced off the shelf. They are making and fabricating custom things to tell, props to tell their story. And I think that's super unique. But one little spot I thought of that you might not know about is on Main Street, USA in Disneyland. It's Coke Corner.
Yep.
And right outside, it's like outside the doors, there's like a little bit of a, I don't know, a roof, I guess you could say, that overhangs the door. And there's alternating red and white lights that flash around it, right? Now, Walt was at the park one day, and he walked under that, and he noticed that there was two, I can't remember if it was white or two red, that were side by side, because it was an odd number of lights. And he didn't like that. He wanted perfection. And so he had them replace the light bulb, and he had them paint one half red and one half is white, so that it's an even amount of red and white lights flickering around.
Balance with all things.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is like,
know that.
it's that attention to detail, maybe nobody was ever going to notice it, but Walt did.
But he knew.
And,
Yeah.
and I'm a true believer that little stuff that probably goes unnoticed by 98% of the guests visiting attributes to the experience that we all have.
It's the most important thing. You put so much
Absolutely.
work for someone to never realize you put the work in.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's great
Yep.
for that. So we're we will keep talking, and I know we want to get to your questions, so we might run a couple minutes late, but not long. But let's go ahead and start doing some audience questions here right in front of us. You had one? Yeah. Yeah.
Hi. Okay. Does that work? Okay. So what I wanted to ask all of y'all was, what is the biggest piece of advice you have for someone who would want to go into like voice acting or like character acting or like stuff like that?
Should we say it on 3? The A
You
word?
guys all have the same answer. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Three,
Acting, yes.
I learned from my mentor, Bill Farmer, that it's not
I don't know that.
it's not voice acting, it's voice acting. And I think that's fantastic advice, and I'll let you expand upon that.
And that was advice that I got from a great voice actor, Dawes Butler, who was the voice behind all of Hanna-Barbera characters, Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, Captain Crunch, about 40-some major characters. And I took classes from him when I first came to California. And he charges like $10, and if you didn't have, he kind of sounded like Captain Crunch anyway. And, oh, Bill, well, come on over. If you don't have any money, it's okay. And so I took classes from him. A lot of great people. Nancy Cartwright was in our thing, Corey Burton, a bunch of people were and learned from him. And he was adamant about learning to act. And I tell students that I did 5 years of stand-up. That was the best training that I ever had, because you get immediate response from the audience. You either find out you're funny or you're not. You learn how to say a joke, how to do a line, because you're in the studio, and you get a script. That's all, a microphone and a script. And you've got to bring this character to life. So you got to know how to do that, first of all, kind of instinctively, how to read a line to get the most out of it. You have to learn to get over yourself, where you're worrying, oh, they hate me. I better do better. You're worrying about you. You're not worrying about the script and the character. So I always say I have to put Bill over on the shelf while I'm inhabiting whatever character it is. I can't worry about what they think of me, because that character wouldn't worry about it. Just inhabit the character fully. It'll become more real. But it's more about the acting than it is in the voice. So acting lessons are premier.
Nice.
One of our peers, the amazing and talented D. Bradley Baker. If you don't know who he is, he's in Clone Wars. I think he's all the stormtroopers, all the clones, and he's like ridiculous at like creature sounds, like ridiculous. I've been to his house, and in his oh, is it time to go?
That's not me.
Oh, okay. So I gotta
Your
wake
time
up.
is coming, Mars, but not now.
My pizza's ready.
Oh, that's what it is?
Like he's
Hi,
got.
Mom, I'm on a panel, and Mars is talking.
Your mom can call me directly. I told her that.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
D. Bradley Baker, so talented. In his studio, in his house, is like CD after CD of just like animal and insect noises. So the dude like listens and like perfects these stuff. Anyway, he started a website because I think he was tired of answering the question. But I will gift it to you guys. It's called iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. On that website, he answers everything that you need to know.
It's a great resource. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that question. And we're already prepped up for another question there in the back, it looks like.
When I came into the panel, you guys were discussing the Disney parks, or it just started.
Yeah.
I had the great fortune to go to Disney World in the same year I'm here at MomoCon for multiple days, and I thought of a question while I was there. In the parks, the voice audio, what percentage of the audio is you guys?
Oh.
Well,
Interesting question.
if it's Goofy or Pluto, it's me. So
Yes! I was hoping they wouldn't get anyone else.
Yeah, as in our roles, we're fortunate enough to be asked to record everything from TV shows to video games to the theme parks.
yeah.
So yeah, when you hear a parade going down Main Street, that's us. When you see a castle show, that's us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you for that question. All right, who has another question? We'll do real quick. All right, so we'll come back up here in a minute. So we got one in the back. We've got two up here when you're ready.
Okay. First of all, my parents absolutely have loved Goofy movies since they were kids. But what is all your guys' favorite movies, like Disney movies?
Favorite Disney movies?
That over here.
Aladdin. I saw it 8 times in the theater. I loved it.
Wait, that's it?
Come on, man.
Which one? The real
thought it
one?
was your favorite.
I think he's talking about the real one, the animated one.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
That Guy Ritchie one, which wasn't as bad as I thought, but no, I mean, the animated one was is gold, in my opinion. I just love it so much.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm going to steal Mars's answer. Mine was Aladdin as well. I'm obsessed.
How many times did you watch
I
it in
love-
theaters?
I think I only saw it 3 times in the theater.
Yeah,
But once that VHS came out,
Yeah.
I wore that thing down.
Possibly Little Mermaid for me.
Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah, good era there. Awesome. Thank you for that question. Got another one over here.
This question is for Bill, but it could apply to all 3 of you.
I'll answer for him.
Okay.
I'll take a nap.
Working for like Disney TV animation nowadays, like on Amphibia, how does that compare to how it was done back when you did stuff like Goof Troop or things like that?
How we recorded these? Well, when I started, the first series I did was called Goof Troop in the early 90s. And that was an ensemble thing where we were all sitting around. I had to sit next to Frank Welker as he made, all sorts of weird, I mean, he'd do cricket noises and the engineers would stop recording. Wow, I got a cricket in the studio. And that was intimidating because we got the script as we went in the door. Okay, go. And we would just do it as a radio play. And if you screwed up the scene, and they kind of, you feel a little bad. And we just learned to just go on the fly and do it as a scene. But then, as technology got better, it became more advantageous to not get everybody on Tuesday at 2 o'clock in a studio. Everybody's schedules might be different. So now, I'll do my lines on a Wednesday, and you do yours on a Thursday, and they edit the best takes of each, and they get a TV show out of this. It's a little bit harder because you have to rely on the director a great deal. So if I'm talking to Mickey and I go, "Gosh, Mickey, let's go outside." If it's just that, I have no idea how far Mickey is away from me, and say, "Oh, he's 50 feet away." "Gosh, Mickey, let's go outside." And then the situation might be different. No, the room's on fire, Come on, Mick, let's get out of here, Then you have to pump it
I've been
up
outside for
to
an
sell
hour,
that
Keith.
idea.
The fire alarm's been going off for a long time, pal.
So it's totally different. Then it changed even over COVID. Then I didn't even go in the studio, and I'm still recording quite often from home. The last whole season of Amphibia I did from my studio in my house. And my son, who's an audio engineer, runs the board, and I just worry about the lines. And so it's kind of a lonely thing, really.
Cool. We have another question there in the back, it looks like.
This is for Mr. Farmer. What additional voices did you do for the Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Actually did, and I don't even know if they used it in the movie. I did the Goofy yell, the "Ee-hoo!" That thing. Hunchback, I can't even remember what I did on that. Just, crowd scenes. A lot of times you'll just be part of a crowd, and you might do it over and over. There might be 8 people in the studio, and you do it over and over, and it sounds like crowds of 100 and stuff. I know some of the fight scenes and stuff, but I can't remember, I'll go to the things and I'll forget totally that I've done them. I did a movie Shrek 2, and I was with my son, and they were having a party at the castle, and I did an introduction. I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Princess Fiona and Prince Shrek." And my son goes, "Dad, that was you." I go, "Yeah, I guess it was. I forgot." Totally forgot that. So I've forgotten more than I remember. I have to go on IMDb and say, "Oh, I did that." Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a thing that comes with your line of work, and you deal with this with any fandom. Typically, the fans end up knowing your body of work better than the artists because the dedication and things like that. I've got a friend of mine. He's one of the voices of Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor, and he's like, "You know my park better than I do," and I'm like, because I don't have to be paid to be there, I suppose,
Oh,
So-
fans know more stuff.
Yeah.
I learn more from fans. They'll say, "Oh, in the 3rd episode of Goof Troop, you had a dinosaur egg. Why'd you put it in the closet as opposed?" I don't know where my wallet is. I don't remember this.
That's awesome. All right, do we have another question over here?
How did you come up with the goofy laugh? I know you probably get asked that a lot.
What about the?
How did
Goofy
you
laugh?
come up with the goofy laugh? Do you have-
Well, I didn't. Pinto Colvig came up with that, and actually, the 25th of May, a couple of days ago, was Goofy's 90th birthday, and basically all he did was laugh, and it's that, and I just practiced it. I taped it and did it over and over till I got closer and closer, and I've been practicing 35 years, and I think I about have it down. So.
Well, Brett, I've got a question for you. Like, I've heard you quoted before as you're just filling in for the boss. As the role of Mickey has kind of been passed down time and time. And I know that growing up, you were a big Mickey fan. And, talking about how you have the voice that comes before. With Mickey, what makes Mickey so timeless for you in that regard? Because you were a fan before you had the job. What is it about Mickey that has stood the test of time, especially that character?
I think it's his core attributes. I think sometimes we forget that Walt and his team designed these characters and their personalities specifically to play off of one another, to serve a specific role in the storytelling aspect of things. And, Mickey, what I've learned over the years is Mickey is the perfect mutual friend. You can walk into a room and not know anybody, and it's like being like, "Hey, do you know Mickey Mouse?" And they're like, "Yeah, I know Mickey Mouse." Like, "Oh my God, me too." And it's this connection that we kind of all have, and like you said, it's tied to nostalgia, it's tied to our own experience. But Mickey's charismatic, he's charming, he's loyal, he's consistent. He's the leader of the club, but he's not infallible. Right. And I think he's very self-aware in that respect. I've heard it said before. Several people have said, Walt or Mickey was kind of Walt's alter ego. Walt was Mickey, and Mickey was Walt. And the more I watch the older shorts and watch interviews with with Walt, you do see that they are pretty much one and the same. So much of Mickey's story of kind of coming up from this steamboat guy, peeling potatoes, and now he's running Disney World. Yeah, it's kind of Walt's story, right? Like this guy who grew up on a farm in Missouri and was delivering papers in Kansas City, and it built this wonderful, amazing, magical company that we've all come to know and love. So yeah, I think Mickey's timeless because he's pretty simple. Walt said Mickey he was a little personality assigned to the purpose of laughter. And I think anytime you try to take Mickey and bring him beyond that, it doesn't work as well. You gotta. The same goes with all the characters, right? Like they work because they work.
Yeah.
So that's something, like you said, filling in for the boss. I heard Wayne say that in an interview he and Rusey were doing, and he said that Jimmy McDonald gave him that advice. He said, "Remember, kid, you're just filling in for the boss." And I never got to be mentored by Wayne, unfortunately. He passed away before I was cast. But I have to believe he would have given me those words himself had he had the chance. So
That's fun. I like that little inheritance. Do you have another question up here, it looks like? We'll make sure we're good. Go for it.
Yeah.
Hello. So this is technically for all three of you, I guess. So I know that you guys have worked on the Kingdom Hearts game before, and I just want to know what you thought about working with them and the game in general, and what you're doing for the new one coming out.
See, I've been hearing about this new. No one told me.
I just found out the day that it was announced. Somebody came up. I was at another convention, and they said,
Yeah.
"Kingdom Hearts 4, right?" And I was like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, they just
We're
announced
the last
it."
to know. That's why I say we go to the fans to find out what we're going to
Fans
be
know
doing.
better.
But it's been done, it was done in Japan first, so the Japanese actors are doing this. And when we did Kingdom Hearts, it was a unique experience. It's really the only time that we were kind of reverse engineering it and doing it looping from Japanese into English. And so the way they do it, it's already animated and everything, so we're looping to a Japanese soundtrack. And so if I'm saying like, "Come on, Sora, let's get out of here," or whatever. And the Japanese, and I don't speak Japanese, it sounds odd to me that Japanese Goofy is like, "Oh, Toshima kacha oyo," It's like, okay, and that's, what am I saying? "Come on, Sora, let's get out of," and I have to do it as close to that length of time. And Japanese language seems to go faster than English, and Goofy's pretty slow speaking it, so I have to kind of pick up the tempo, and we do it several times, and I don't hear any of the words before or after, so it's just this weird random line. And they'll go, the book on it is like, thousands of lines. You go to page 18 and do these 2 lines. Go to page 43, do these lines, and do this. And then we did it in like 4-hour blocks over like a year period. And then we go in like a month later, we do another 4-hour block and stuff like that. And so now I know I've got some work to come that'll come down the road one of these years.
Congrats on
I
it.
don't know when. So we never know anything.
Assuming the characters are in it. I mean, we can't even verify that the characters.
No,
I made the
I
mistake
don't know.
of saying, "Oh, well, I'm looking forward to working on it." And he goes, "So Mickey's in it?" I said,
Yeah.
No, don't quote me on that. I know nothing.
Oh,
know
I
nothing."
got in such trouble with Disney because someone had asked me when it had been a long time since the second and the third game came out, and someone asked, "Well, when's the game coming out?" And I'd recorded it like a year and a half ago, and I said, "Oh, I don't know, I guess probably by the end of the year." And then it went like trending on the internet.
Farmer confirmed.
Yeah, and then
Release date.
and then there was all these websites that were saying, "Oh, Bill Farmer says that the third game's going to come out."
So
at
when's the
end of
fourth
the
game
year."
coming out then is the question I think we have here.
I
Next week,
don't
right?
know. But no, I got a call and it just said, "Oh, the Walt Disney Company." Okay, I know what this is. And why did you say? I don't know. They don't call me. Iger doesn't call me and say, "Bill, we're releasing Kingdom Hearts this year." So no, I just guessed. I had no idea. We don't know anything.
Social media is for
We're the hired help. We go in, we do the lines, we go home.
What do you find more confusing, the fact that you discovered that you were doing a Kingdom Hearts game, or the actual story of the Kingdom Hearts games themselves? I'm always,
I still don't know the story.
That's the
of
right
these
answer.
times.
As someone who's played all of them, Mars, I don't know if you remember at Text Exchange we had a few months ago. I was playing one of the Final Fantasy 13 games, and I'm playing a game, and I was like, "Oh, you're in this, you jerk! I had no clue." And your response was like, "Yeah," and I still don't know what the story is to this day. And that's just the way these wild RPGs, these stories and things like that go. Just how it's just a job, but it's
hard to track.
weird at times.
Yes,
So
it can be weird.
yeah, so I want to wrap up with one more question from the audience. I thought I saw someone floating over here, and then we'll do that last question. Go for it.
Okay, so out of all the roles you had, was there something memorable that popped out at you that you always like to tell people about?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the Rolodex is going.
Yeah, it's
Oh, there's so many individual. I guess just looking back on 35 years of doing this, I mean, there's a lot of little incidental things that have come back to me from time to time. Some of my greatest memories are when we used to go down to Disney World in the 90s, and we'd do radio interviews. They'd have an opening for, when Animal Kingdom opened, for example. We'd go down there and we'd do hundreds of radio interviews. And I'd do it with Wayne and Rusey and Tony and Corey and everybody else. And unfortunately, we don't see each other except kind of coming and going in maybe the studios or at events like this. We really don't see each other. But there, We got to do radio interviews together. I really miss that because it was great. It was like a family, and you miss your family when you're away from them, and that's the way I felt and still feel today about working with everybody. Disney has been more of a family than anything else, any other studio that I've worked with, and there's so many memories. It's like going, what's your favorite vacation? It's hard to tell, you know. What are your favorite memories of your life? You know, there's so many that come to mind that it's almost impossible to make it down into one or two.
I could borrow off of that, Bill.
Yeah.
'Cause I did one of those with you at Disney World, and Wayne and Rusey were still with us, and we all went to Disney Radio to do something on air, and we met Julie Andrews for like a second.
Yeah.
She was there. And then it was you, me, it was Wayne and Rusey, Jennifer Hale, who was the voice of Cinderella, Susan Blakesley, who was Cruella de Vil, and they took us on the air of Disney Radio and just let us improv. And you know, Susan Blakesley is Cruella de Vil, and Bill, who's also Pluto, doing a banter about, you know, he's barking, and she's like, "Oh, I'll get you, Pluto, turn you into a coat, da da da." Well, after we did it, we're laughing. Oh, aren't we clever, fun actors? Well, a phone call came in from a mom whose 4-year-old daughter was listening to this live in tears. Do you remember this?
Yes, I do.
Tears because she was worried about Pluto. Is like Cruella de Vil's going to kill Pluto and turn him into a coat? Yes.
A collar or something.
Oh.
And Rusey Taylor, I miss you so much. Like a soldier, he's like, "I got this." They put her back on the air, and Rusey, as Minnie Mouse, completely takes over and talks to the girl on the air and says, like, "It's okay, Pluto's right here," and Pluto is barking, like, and yeah, and it's okay, he's fine. And Cruella, she seems really harsh, but she's really got a lot of goodness in her heart, and she would never let anything happen to Pluto. And we were all just like,
You know, it's like, oh yeah.
But it was one of those, you know, magical things that, like, and sometimes I take for granted how much, and I experience it when I meet you guys. Like, I know, like, what we do, how it affects everybody, and those moments, that moment especially, really, you know, branded into my brain as to the impact
cool.
that
remember
voice actors can make, and one of the most special memories I have of Wayne and Rusey in the park. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that beyond any role that we play with these characters, any specific project, whether it's a parade, a TV show, or whatever, it is, you know, realizing the power of these characters and the honor that it is to be associated with them or be even a part. And you know, as actors, I think improv is always super exciting because you get a little bit, you're not as confined to a script. And I've had the same joy of working on a project where Mickey got to talk to people one-on-one, and that was pretty special. But then, you know, something I learned early on was about how Wayne and Rusey used to do a lot of hospital calls.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh gosh, that's like, it's got to be hard. And it is. And I've had the opportunity to do that a few times. And I got to tell you, it's so magical to see, again, how powerful these characters are, because you have the ability to take a child or an adult, whoever, who's not in the best of situations, and really elevate them out of that just by, you know, talking to them as Mickey, as Donald, as Goofy, Max, you know, and that's a pretty incredible place to be in a role to be a part of. So yeah, I think it's, for me, I think all of us would probably agree, it's less about what project we've worked on, but the best memories are when you realize how impactful the characters can be.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh yeah.
All right, real quick before we go, last quick rapid-fire question. If we were to pull the string on the dolls of Mars, Bill and Brett, what would your catchphrase be? Go.
What's happening, Mars here?
Bill?
Gorge, I hope I never quit.
And Brett?
Choo-choo.
Choo-choo. And we choo-choose you, my friend. Thank you all so much. Let's give them all a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out, MomoCon.
Guys.
And they'll be at their tables tomorrow, another panel as well with these boys. Make sure you give them your time. Thank y'all so much.
Thanks.